Well, good morning, everyone. We're going to get started now. I'm sure there'll be people that will continue to join us, but we've got quite a few here already. So we'll get going because we've got a good lineup of speakers for you today. Um, Good morning, everyone. I'd like to begin by acknowledging the traditional owners of the lands on which we are all meeting today, wherever you may be. I myself am on the unceded lands of the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation. I pay my respects to their elders, past, present, and emerging, and to any other elders who may be present today. My name is Justine Hazelwood, for those who don't know me. I'm the Director and the Keeper of Public Records at Public Record Office Victoria, and I'd like to welcome you to the first Records Management Network event for 2023. And welcome to you all, to everyone who's joining us today, and a special welcome to our speakers as well. After the unexpected cancellation of our November Records Management Network, we've been fortunate to reschedule most of the speakers we had lined up who were originally going to present, so that's great news. We do have an exciting range of presenters today who are going to share their experience of managing records in challenging and innovative ways. But as traditional, before I begin, I have a few updates about what Public Record Office has been doing. So, to support Victorian public officers in managing retention periods and to authorise disposal of COVID-19 related records, we have updated a few of our retention and disposal authorities, otherwise known as RDAs, and promoted their revised provisions through our website. So, check those out. If you're wondering what to do with records that are related to the COVID-19 emergency situation. Particularly those records that are collected personal information. There has also been a new RDA issued for school records, which was developed in collaboration with the Department of Education and Training, and we thank them because it was a huge amount of work and a really great result. We've released a new policy on approvals. So this sets out our position regarding capturing and managing records of approval processes, decisions, and actions. And you should apply it in conjunction with our value and risk policy. In consultation with the Office of the Victorian Information Commissioner and the DPC Cybersecurity Branch, we've also developed guidance on how public officers can meet their privacy and record keeping obligations. That has been published on our website. So again, have a look at that. If you're wondering whether the two things can be reconciled, they certainly can. And in the same vein, last year we issued a new RDA to authorise disposal of identity verification records, and that is to reduce the risk of personal privacy data breaches. So that's one to keep on top of. I know a lot of times we don't dispose of records when their retention periods are up straight away, but where you've got identity verification records, it's worth actually being proactive about disposal. We have also published a new guideline on managing records in Microsoft 365. This is based on work that was done by the Australasian Digital Record Keeping Initiative, which is an Australia-New Zealand initiative looking at digital record keeping. Prov led that work, and we have published our guideline based on that work. The guideline applies to any system holding records that uses Microsoft 365 as a core component. We've also been working with DPC to develop a guidance note to assist staff responsible for leading and coordinating the response of their department or agency to the Europe Justice Commission, particularly notices to produce. So it provides information and advice about the process for retrieving historical records held by Prov in response to a notice to produce. And the guidance note is available for all departments and Victoria Police through the DPC, Europe Justice Commission, Whole of Victorian Government Working Group team site. So if you are working on that, please have a look at that guidance note. We are also in the process of reviewing our strategic management standard, and I want to thank all of those people who provided input into the review. This is nearing completion, and we're looking at a publication of the revised documents in May. I'd also like to thank those who provided input into the new business systems policy, which is being finalised and will be published shortly. This sets out our position on managing records in place within business systems. So what sort of things you have to do and look out for. Oh, Windows has just told me it's going to restart. So if I disappear, you'll know what's happened. Hopefully I can stop that. The Sir Rupert Hamer Awards, we're very excited to have resumed the Sir Rupert Hamer Awards for record keeping excellence and innovation. The independent judging panel is currently assessing the nominations and the award ceremony, which will be held on 21st of May. The Information Management Maturity Assessment Program, some of you will have been filling out those assessments. So submission for the 4th Biennial Information Management Maturity Assessments Program have been analysed, and we're expecting to publish the de-identified report in early April, so very shortly. We've also upgraded our e-learning system, so that existing Record Keeping Essentials module has been refreshed, great for new staff in your agencies as a way of getting them to understand records and record keeping and the importance of it in the government. And we're looking at a new digital record keeping module, which we'll be releasing shortly, and that will be freely available to anybody as well. And obviously we're also able to make that available to your own internal systems so that you can put it into your own internal learning and development modules. If that's something that is useful, we're happy to do that. In terms of records transfers and movements of records, in terms of physical records, we have been working with the Geological Survey of Victoria, transferring records that date back to the 1860s and all the way up to 2000. So that's a really exciting transfer and will be available shortly to anybody who wants to access them. We've also been transferring pre-Torrens title land registration records and the in-house archives of the Royal Melbourne Hospital, and there's some great material in that as well. Cabinet records of the Andrews government term 2 were transferred from the Cabinet Office, and all of the departments and portfolio agencies plus Victoria Police, and that was done within a fortnight of the declaration of the November state election result. So that's actually a new record for transfer of cabinet records, to have it done that quickly. The overwhelming majority of those records are now digital and will be preserved in our digital archive. And that's the achievement of that is actually the culmination of a lot of work by Prov, but also by Cabinet Office and the departments and agencies. So to transform that from a hard copy record keeping process to a digital process. So congratulations to everyone involved in that. Those of you who come to our North Melbourne office, we've got a new exhibition that comes from the National Archives of Australia. It's called Spy, Espionage in Australia. And so it reveals the personal experiences of secret agents and the curious history of espionage and counter-espionage in Australia. It was developed in partnership with ASIO. So it's well worth a look if you happen to visit us in North Melbourne. And lastly, in recognition of World Digital Preservation Day last year, we published a short piece about our research on a simple approach for preservation of dynamic websites. The blog about that is available on our website, and links to all of the resources as well. And links to all resources mentioned have been provided in the Q&A as well. So now we'll move on to our exciting lineup of speakers. If you have any questions for any of our speakers, please ask them in the Q&A section. Each speaker will have time at the end of their presentation to answer them. This meeting is being recorded and will be made available on our website after the event. And our the team behind running this webinar will be online to help with any queries or to deliver your questions, and that is Natasha and Andrea. So thanks to them. So let's start. So our first speaker today is John O'Driscoll from the Department of Justice and Community Safety. John is the Justice Sector Chief Information Security Officer, and he'll be talking on the very relevant and topical subject of cyber threats. So welcome, John.
Thanks very much, Justin, and it's a pleasure to come and talk at your forum today. I will share a slide pack, and I've actually provided that to, I think, the Secretariat. So is that coming up now? Are people able to see that?
Yes.
Yes.
Sounds good. All right. Yeah, I moved across to Justice in September last year on a secondment from DPC. So from those of you that I haven't met before, I was the first Victorian Government Chief Information Security Officer, and then I got asked to come over to the Justice to look at how we could set up a cyber capability that addresses the justice sector, which is around 90 entities. So if I take you through what I'm going to talk about today, I want to give you a little bit of a quick overview of the cyber threat landscape response. So what's the Victorian government doing in relation to that? A little bit of a heads up on our Victorian cyber strategy. And then I want to focus a bit more attention on insight from recent breaches, and there's been a number of them. And so Justin was talking about some guidance from PROV, like disposal of ID verification records and others. And I think just how important that is for us to be able to work towards. So the cyber threat landscape, it's hostile, becoming more hostile, and it's quite lucrative. So the bad guys are always going to look to opportunities to monetize either theft of data through things like ransomware attacks, or taking critical services offline and impacting availability, which can result in potential impact to the community, health, safety, well-being, but also a fairly significant embarrassment to government. Nationally, you can see from some of the figures there, it's a multi-billion-dollar industry. I think cyber breaches is like the third greatest GDP behind the US and China. So whatever it's relatively easy for the bad guys to cause us harm and monetize that, they'll keep coming at us. And we can see that the Australian government now, particularly Minister Claire O'Neil, has a fairly ambitious target to make Australia one of the most secure nations by 2030, which isn't far away. We'll talk about that later. So our threat actors, they range from annoying. We've had instances where we've had our governor's website defaced, through to well-organised criminal groups, and through to highly sophisticated and well-resourced nation states. So we attract all categories of those cyber threat actors, and it's not going to go away. It will continue for quite some time. The level of threat we face from foreign espionage and interference activities is cited by the head of ASIO as being currently unprecedented. And Justine, it's really interesting now that you've got that exhibit out at your North Melbourne office. What we're seeing then is increased likelihood of cyber attacks impacting government, but also critical infrastructure, service delivery, and public confidence. So there's a link to of the most recent report that's come out of the Australian Cybersecurity Centre in Canberra. They have an annual cyber threat report, and Victoria's on the podium, which in this instance is really bad. So if we look at the number of incidents reported from the various states and territories to the ACSC, we can see Queensland is gold medal at the moment, but Victoria is second place with 27% of all the incidents that get reported to ACSC coming from our state. And I think that's probably an underrepresentation of incidents, but we can see in 2020-21, there was 76,000 reported. So that was an increase of around 13% over the previous year. And I expect that will continue to grow. So if you're interested, you can definitely go and have a look at that link, and you'll be able to get some more information. So what are we doing as a result of all this? Technology by itself won't solve the problem. So we need a three-pronged attack, which is around people, process, and technology. But in isolation, none of those three pillars will solve the problem. And one of the first things that we've been working towards is cyber governance and metrics. So it's really important that although I was sitting in Department of Premier and Cabinet, we didn't do cyber for all of the Victorian government. So departments and agencies are accountable for managing their own risk, and cyber risk is absolutely another business risk. So my expectation is that departments and agencies will have some of that capability. We're coming from a fairly low base. Some of the departments and agencies are further progressed in their capability uplift measures, and unfortunately, sometimes it's because there's been a significant incident that's impacted them, and that's driving the need to limit the likelihood of that occurring again. The second point is around cyber culture. I'm a bit of an optimist. I think people will do the right thing if they understand why, and if we make it as easy as possible for them to do the right thing. And we want to make sure that we have a culture where if there is something that's broken or there's a deficiency or a vulnerability, we have to make it safe for our staff to be able to air that and then get some action to address that sort of going forward. And cyber maturity and controls, many of the incidents that are occurring aren't, even though some of the impacted organisations say they're sophisticated, like Optus did a little while ago, and we'll talk about that a little bit more, they're not necessarily that sophisticated in what's being exploited. So there's something called the Australian Signals Directorate Essential 8, and that's sort of a basic uplift in cyber controls. And our colleagues in Canberra say if you've got those basics in place, that will either prevent or significantly limit the impact of about 85% of those. Sorry, I'll go back. Right. And asset management, you can't protect what you don't know you've got. And I think our ability to identify key assets, whether they be IT or data repositories, supporting our business processes is still pretty minimal. And that's something I would like to be able to work with your records management network to see how we can get better visibility as to where those data assets reside and what the level of protection is. And it's important, if the data is within our own area, critical that we provide some resilient controls around that. But if we outsource and a third party has custodianship of that data, we still are accountable for that. Threat intelligence, what we need to be able to do is identify threats more quickly than we've ever had in the past, but then respond to them even quicker. Once upon a time, you used to have, and that's probably last year, you used to have about a month between a publicly disclosed vulnerability and then it being weaponized by the threat actors. Now we're down to days, sometimes even hours. So we've got to work better collectively to understand what's happening and then to reach out to the right people. And guidance and advice, we want to, at the moment, we're fortunate that we have lots of really smart people in government working on this, but there's a dependency on people. So we have to codify a lot of that knowledge and establish strategy, policy patterns, standard guidelines, very similar, Justine, to what you were talking about, like the guideline around managing Microsoft 365 and business systems records management. So hats off to you, Improv. I think that's a really important piece of work, and we need to get in behind and support it, and then make sure that we have our business processes codified to be able to help staff as well. So the Victorian government issued its second cyber strategy in 2021, and the vision is to create a cyber safe Victoria. So it was a very significant step up from Victorian government saying we need to do more than just protect our own systems. We need to protect the community, which was awesome. And I was very privileged to be able to work with Minister for Government Services, Danny Pearson, and he was a principal advocate of Victoria stepping up to that aspirational target. And then there are 3 missions supporting that. So the first one is really in our space on a day-to-day basis. That's the safe and reliable delivery of government services. And I'll let you go through the pack at your own convenience and sort of learn a little bit more about that. Mission 2 is a cyber safe place to work, live and learn. How do we get out to our community? How do we get out to kids in education? How do we help small businesses to make sure that they understand and they can do something appropriately to mitigate their risk? And then Mission 3 was a lead for Department of Jobs, Skills, Industry and Regions, which is about growing a vibrant cyber economy. The cost of cybercrime is significant, but also the products and services and that part of the market is growing at a rate of knots. So why can't we in Victoria get a share of that wallet? So we're looking to see how we could position Victoria to be a centre for cybersecurity excellence, maybe not just in our region, but globally, which is pretty exciting. So recent cyber attacks. If I look at some of the public ones that you're probably all familiar with, if we go back to Optus, and that was around mid-September, and I remember that because I'm a Sydney Swans supporter, and the AFL Grand Final was due to happen on the weekend in mid-September. I got a call about 2 hours before the grand final started, and even though it was Optus, government got impacted because there are records in birth, deaths and marriages, in transport with licences and others that potentially were compromised. So what do we do in government? Do we reissue those or whatever? So the only good thing that came out of that is it cut down the amount of grief that I would have got watching Sydney Swans get smashed. But it was really another example that the bad guys don't bundy off at 5 o'clock on a Friday night. It's a 24/7 by 365 process, and often in government we aren't set up for that. We'll talk about that a little bit more. So what happened with Optus? About 10 million current and former customer records were exposed, and that included things like driver's licenses, passports, Medicare details. Optus responded quite quickly, and their CEO came out and did media statements early, but made a fundamental mistake in saying it was a sophisticated attack, and then got really criticised for that statement, even from the recently appointed Minister for Cyber, Claire O'Neill, who indicated that she thought it was a schoolboy error, and that Optus was, didn't opened up opportunities for bad guys to get in, and it wasn't a particularly sophisticated attack. Doesn't really matter. Optus had about 120 people working that incident at its peak point in time, which is really significant. And it's great that we're able to mobilise and marshallise resources quickly, but if we had multiple attacks around the same time, I think we would exhaust the capability for cyber professionals within our region. So we definitely need to grow the pipeline for cyber talent coming through. So if any of you are interested in the future in cyber, feel free to reach out to me and we can have a bit of a discussion. So that was the Optus breach. Then Medibank followed about a month after, and there was about 200 gigabytes of data that was exfiltrated. And then more recently, unfortunately, on the 16th of March, Latitude Financial. So, it's really difficult to be able to go out to the media and give an informed assessment as to what the extent of the incident is. So it was only the 16th of March. Initially, Latitude said there's probably about 330,000 records. Today, that's been updated to 14 million, and there's about 8 million driver's licenses and 6 million other pieces of information. And I think to pick up a point that Justine was talking about as well, with the Latitude breach, there's historical customer data dating back to 2005. So about 50% we think of the data that's been stolen is over 10 years old. So it comes down to why? Like, why do we maintain that historical data for so long? Is it because of data retention rules and regulations? If it is, maybe there's an opportunity now to have a discussion as to, in this day and age, are those retention requirements still relevant? Or is it just a little bit of laziness where sometimes it takes extra work to go and dispose of historical information? Oh yeah, we'll get around to it. So I think we probably need two things. Are the data retention rules, regulations, legal obligations still relevant? And then there's accountability and responsibility on organisations to make sure that they go through and remove data when it's no longer required. We haven't escaped in government either. It was publicly disclosed that Fire Rescue Victoria was subjected to a cyber attack a couple of months ago, and that's generating a heap of work. One of the things we've found from that is that it's often easier to compromise really old infrastructure because maybe it's out of support, it's not fit for purpose. So underinvestment in technical infrastructure for many years is got an exponential cost curve when it comes to data breaches. And we also find that third parties are often the entry point into the data breaches. That was what happened with Latitude. But also we had a private prison, G4S, a private prison operator that was compromised in the middle of last year. And again, that impacts government. So what do we learn from all of this? Australia's a prime target. That's not going to go away. We need more cyber talent, and the federal government is looking at how we can make that happen, but we can't wait for the feds to do everything. So we need to have an active program to address that within our own departments and agencies. Knowing the value of the data is really important, and I'm not sure whether that's generally recognised. So, I'm sure across your records management network you understand that, but I think there's a need for us to be able to engage more with business units to help them understand that maybe the data that they deal with on a day-to-day basis has some amazing intrinsic value. Data collection and retention, let's look at how we do that, and then what are our rules, obligations around it. And the Commonwealth is in the process of appointing a national cybersecurity coordinator. So why? With Optus and with Medibank, the Commonwealth was quite disappointed in the information sharing between the impacted organisations and other parts of government that are directly or indirectly impacted by it. So you can see that the feds are wanting to be able to take a more proactive role in stepping in, maybe coordinating, maybe even directing, organisations when they have been compromised to be able to help us understand and marshal our resources to mitigate that risk. Customer comms is super important. So you can be coming from the right place, but if you say the wrong things, the media will just tear you apart. So it's really important that we do cyber exercises where we simulate ransomware attacks or data breaches and get the right people together, including comms people and legal, as well as the technical side, to make sure that we have some run sheets and some messaging that's going to work effectively and not compromise government as we respond to these incidents. So the future, scale and pace of digital transformation is going to continue to grow. Government has been sort of a slow adopter of digital transformation, but there's definitely an expectation and a demand from not only our political parties, but also the community for better digital experiences for customers. Increased cyber hostility, that will continue to happen. You can see the impact of the Russia-Ukraine war and how cyber is being used as another platform for warfare. There's in our region, there's a lot of political tension at the moment, and that's not going to go away. And so sometimes it's easier to launch a cyber bomb than it is to launch a physical missile. So that's something we're going to have to live with. more and larger data breaches, and possibly we have to assume breach and then start to look at our controls and our approaches and response to make sure that we can handle those breaches when they occur. Critical infrastructure, OT, and third parties all compromise cyber, and we're doing some work now with Digital Victoria and Justice on a third-party risk management framework. Accountability and consequences for cyber attacks. The bad guys work really well together to do us harm, and we have to be able to marshal our resources and work effectively and make sure we have a clear understanding as to who's got accountability for what. Demand continues to outpace supply for capable cyber resources. And we notice that in government as well, and it's really hard for us to be able to keep pace with industry packaging offerings for cyber, for limited cyber resources. So we have to think of ways that we can attract and retain government resources and buddy up with third-party service providers to help us. Automated defence and attack. Now we're starting to see machines attacking us. In the future, I guess we'll have machines defending against the machine attacks. So it's a whole new world. But all of those things mean that we need to think differently about what we do sort of going forward. And there were some attachments that I put in the pack, but happy for you to, we'll probably stop now because we've come to pretty close the end of the schedule time, but maybe open up for any quick questions.
Thank you, John. If anyone's got any questions, I'd like to put them in the Q&A, or John, do you have access to the Q&A?
Yep, I sure do.
I can't see any questions there, but I wanted to say, John, I think that there has been
off. Justine, the chat's turned off.
Not the chat, the Q&A.
Oh, right.
Yes. In terms of the retention and disposal, I think that we've done a lot of work to make sure that particularly identity information, that the retention on that is pretty short unless it's required for a longer term. And so I think, but there has been a lot of resistance to actually doing proactive disposal out and about. So hopefully that these incidents will prompt people and prompt departments to funnel a bit more resource into kind of proactively managing this information rather than just having it sit there.
Absolutely, Justine, and maybe even, like in birth, deaths and marriages and in licenses, where other parties store government issued identity documents, maybe we're going to have to be a bit more specific in our expectations or government's expectations on them in the way they store and manage those documents. So it's something that would be great to be able to talk to you further about.
Yep. So we do have a number of questions now. So I can see one from David Taylor saying, wondering why there's no whole of government approach rather than leaving it to each department.
Yeah, well, I came into Victorian government at the end of 2017, and it's not an unfair statement to say departments and agencies are quite fiercely independent. So there is an appetite to be able to do things at a central government level where it makes sense, but it's going to take some time. And even though I came from DPC, now the Department of Government Services, they can't do cyber on behalf of 340,000 public servants across the 9 departments and agencies. But we are doing some work now to look at, like a RACI, responsible and accountable, which things can central government help with, but which pieces do the departments need to step up to. And one good thing that's happening now is there are more CISOs being appointed across government, and Digital Victoria now coordinate a whole of government CISOs forum. So we are sharing, not only our risk, but also goodness so that we can leverage it and then maybe just re-logo it and use it across the departments.
think there's another question. How much underreporting is estimated with reporting of breaches?
Yeah, within government, it's not too bad now because we have some mandatory obligations for reporting through OVIC. But industry, there's in critical infrastructure, there's definitely some regulations that have been issued recently now to make that mandatory. But I could see that Commonwealth Government is going to push a lot harder for industry to report. But what we've got to do is we've got to encourage industry to report. So, if they put their hand up and say something's happening, we don't necessarily want somebody to attack them because they've fessed up to what's happening. That's part of the cultural approach. So I think there will be an uplift in reporting. I expect too that there'll probably be some moves for at least publicly listed companies to include incident reporting in their annual statements. But there's a whole piece of work that we're doing with Commonwealth Government around that. So it will improve over time.
And then we've got a question on what can frontline information management teams do to assist in a cyber response?
Yeah, I think there's probably a recognition that we need to apply information categories to data, but I don't think it's done that well. Sometimes it's not done at all. So I think pushing to make sure that we have some, protective markings or whatever on all documents, even moving to Microsoft 365, because what we've found when we've had data exfiltrated, there might be 200 gigabytes of data that's gone out. It's really hard to know which ones of those files are really important. It would be so much easier if we had information classifications against files, documents, and all the rest. So that's something that maybe we as an information management community can start to push a lot harder. And sometimes people say it's too hard. There's always a level of difficulty in everything, but raising a child is often difficult, but that doesn't mean to say you don't try and raise them to be a well-adjusted community member. So we've got to stop accepting people's excuses and see if we can make a consistent approach to those information classifications, and maybe look to see if we can have document management systems that have got those in. That's really an issue-rich environment for us in government at the moment.
And then we have a question on streamlining disposal procedures will improve rate of removal of identity docs no longer required. Can we also look at ways to reduce what we collect? I think the Privacy Commissioner would love you to do that.
Yeah. So the answer is yes. It's just a matter of getting some smart people like those on the forum together to look at how we might be able to do that more effectively. So I definitely put my hand up to be able to work with you, Justine, and the Risk Management Forum to look at, there's some easy quick wins that we could get squared away. Why shouldn't we start?
And then we've got a question about, I think that's it says the VPDSF now supports the CISO roles and responsibilities for VicGov, but what happens in local government and entities not mandated by OVIC VPDSF framework? Are we all part of? We are all part of the public service.
I know, and it's the legal instruments that determine who gets swept up under VPDSF, which is VPDSF is a good thing, but we shouldn't only do things because we're compliance driven. We should do things because it just makes sense to do it. But on that question, local government was very much an unloved part of government for quite some time, still not there yet. But we have been working with the Minister for Government Services to push the concept of having a sector CISO for local government, and to be able to leverage some of what we do in state and Commonwealth to help local. We've had a number of sessions with local government CEOs and CIOs, and they're up for it. So I think now you'll see over a period of time where we can help them uplift their cyber capability without it necessarily being VPDSF stick there.
And then we've got a question that's saying, what are the available government programs to build cyber professionals?
Pretty limited, but in the cyber strategy, there is working with on Mission 3, which is a vibrant cyber economy, and Department of Jobs, there are some programs now, like mid-career opportunities for people to move into cyber. We're looking to see whether we might be able to promote the intern opportunities more. And we've been doing some work with the neurodiverse community, and we're looking to see whether we might be able to work in my space with youth justice to be able to open some opportunities for people to come in to cyber. Even if we bring people in and then they'll get paid an exorbitant amount at some stage with industry, but it's still, we've done something positive. And while we can, it's working for government gives you the opportunity to make a real difference to people's lives each and every day. So we can help influence people to come in. In government, we can provide such a diverse and interesting range of areas to work on. But it's the only way we're going to grow our talent pool is if we can work with industry as well and tie it in with some of the tertiary education institutions to make sure that we're pumping out really capable cyber professionals rather than people that just have a theoretical view. So we have been working with tertiary education on that.
And a final question, will there be audits on our cybersecurity plans across the sector? We do report to OVIC, but I know from personal experience that having an audit makes a world of difference.
Absolutely. So I used to be an auditor in my previous life. So auditors can be your best friend. They can also be your nightmare. So, but is there an opportunity for audit to come in and look at the department's strategies and their mission delivery plans? Most definitely. But I would like departments to be able to do some of that independent verification themselves. But yeah, there will be a bigger appetite for audit to come in. Just make sure that when auditor coming in, that you can influence the scope of the audit so that it helps you and it just doesn't create more of a risk. Sometimes auditors will rephrase what you know already. And okay, so that happens, but we want to make sure that the remediations are agreed by management, and management gets prioritisation with people and funding to be able to address those. The last thing I want is an extra 100 audit issues, and I have to try and manage those in my spare time.
Thanks very much, John. That was great. And I think you can see there was a lot of interest because there were quite a few questions. So thank you, and look forward to working with you further on areas where we both have mutual interests. Things like classification, obviously, is something that records people are very, very concerned with.
Absolutely. And if there's one of your members that would like to be an early adopter of some of these, it doesn't have to be in justice either. I'd be happy to be able to work with them. So thanks again for the opportunity to come and talk to you and your team.
Thanks, John.
Bye, Justine.
Okay, now I am hoping that we have our second speaker today. Yes, we do. Great. Hello, Sandra.
Hello,
I'll just give you an
Justine.
intro.
Thank you.
So now we have Sandra Pickett from Victoria Police. She's going to be talking about their quite long-running information management maturity program. So welcome, Sandra.
Thank you so much, Justine. I'll just share my screen. Can you actually see my slides?
Yes.
You can. Great. So thank you for inviting me today to talk at this presentation or this network group. I'm Sandra Pickett. I'm the Enterprise Information Manager with Victoria Police. I have been with Victoria Police now for 4 years, and during that time I've been working at uplifting the IM maturity within the organisation through a program of work, and that's what I'm going to share with you today in terms of what I've been working on for those 4 years. So just to set the scene, just so I can show you what our information records management unit looks like. I personally report to 2 different officers. I report to the Chief Information Security Officer in relation to an EDRS MS project, which I'll talk about in the later slides. And I also report to Superintendent Tony DeRitter, who is our agency security officer on BAU and all things IM. I have 2 unit managers. One is an IM specialist, and direct reports are an IM officer. And we just recently had a resignation with IM officer, and I feel that there's a need to fill a skill gap to do with process mapping and also analyst work when we actually do implement an EDRMS. So I'm going out, well, I have been out to the market and we'll be re-advertising shortly so that we can actually find the skill sets to do some process mapping within our business areas to map out what the current state of certain businesses are and then a future state, and then working out whether the EDRMS is a solution that's going to help them increase their efficiencies and streamline some of their manual processes. Then I have a unit manager, Tracy Manelick, who is responsible for managing and overseeing our archive centre. And that's is made up of a archive instruction manager. We have several records officers with day-to-day, a team leader who oversees those officers. All the positions are filled except for one at the moment. We're just catching up after the freeze that was actually in place across the whole of Victorian government. So one more. Then we have a separate stream across to your right of the screen, and that is to do with the URIC Justice Commission, which Justine referred to as part of her welcome discussion. So this is a really unique Justice Commission, and it's really the first of its kind in terms of associated with injustices of First Nation peoples since colonisation. And if you're not aware, URIC actually means truth. So we need a task force to be able to do a complete and accurate discovery of all our hard copy and our electronic documents that goes far back as the mid-1800s. So on the right is a team that's been set up for the purpose of assisting Tracy with identifying relevant documents that are either held at Victoria Police or held at Prov, and we have to retrieve those documents back. We've also got a task force that supports this particular unit as well. They're made up of our legal professionals and also professionals who work in our policy unit. So the program of work that I've been working on for 4 years, these are just the key points. It doesn't cover everything that we've been working on, but these are certainly ones that I thought I'd share with you today. So there was an Information Management Governance Committee that existed prior to my arrival, and for some reason it actually disbanded. So in 2019, when I started, it was reinvigorated again, and it's now a Tier 1 committee, and it's made up of all different representatives across the organisation to discuss all things IM and what's happening, the broader trends that are happening across the organisation. They also look at particular projects that involve the collection and management of information assets in the organisation, and also how are we going to improve our IM maturity. That particular committee was recently rebadged and changed to a digital transformation committee, and that is because we've had a change in executive. So we have a new chief digital officer, and as John said, we are certainly one agency who definitely needed a CISO. So we now have a chief information security officer that commenced with VicPol last year. So an data and IM management working or steering committee will be set up underneath the new digitisation transformation committee, and we'll be pushing up everything that is happening across the whole of Victorian government. We'll be also continue to report on how the IM maturity is going, and we're also going to discuss the progress with our first enterprise EDRMS. We have developed an IM strategy, 2020-2025. Because we've got a new DTC committee and because we've actually got a new CDO, a new CISO, we're wanting to actually revisit this particular strategy. And I think that's really good timing, because I think that it could be more focused on information management, and there's a lot that's happened in those 4 years since it was first developed. So that's currently happening at the moment. So implementation of an enterprise EDRMS. Some of you might be aware in the various forums that I've been attending that Victoria Police doesn't have an EDRMS. We certainly have a RecFind system that helps us locate where our physical records are held, but we've never been in a position where we've captured our electronic, well, basically captured our information. Born digital, stay digital is where we need to be, and this will actually help us in reaching that capability. So as part of the IM strategy Horizon 1, the idea was that we actually maybe source some funding to actually implement an EDRMS. After a lot of hard work, writing up business cases, which were done by my predecessors and myself when I first started, look, the appetite just seemed to be right at the time, and that's probably because of the feedback we were getting. Royal Commissions, we just weren't able to find all the information that we needed to produce it. We weren't able to produce it in a timely manner either. So we actually ended up getting ERC funding. And I'm pleased to say that we've gone out to the marketplace on the 1st of March, and we're hoping to actually sign a contract and have an EDRMS in place by the end of the year. The IM Maturity Roadmap that I developed was approved by the IMGC in 2020. That roadmap is made up of our pain points, our gaps, and our shortfalls, however way you want to badge it. And we know what they are based on observations. We know what they are by the business unit sharing their observations and what they're dealing with, frontline policing on a day-to-day basis. We also engaged an external consultant to do a report on our IM maturity. So when we looked at all those particular elements, we were able to make up an IM maturity roadmap. And that consists of 20 core activities that we feel that we need to actually complete so that we can uplift our IM maturity and lift it from an awareness state to a formative, and then obviously formative, and moving through the various ratings. And I'll be sharing more about how we report where we are with that roadmap and later on in one of my slides when we do reports up to the IMGC committee. We enhanced and migrated our information asset register from a clunky old spreadsheet into a SharePoint environment, which is way more user-friendly. We looked at what all the mandatory data fields should be. We worked out which ones were nice to have, which ones did we really need. And basically, we've got to a point now where we've actually embedded IM assessments as part of an ICT end-to-end delivery framework, whereby a number of assessments are done within that security and IM space. So we do assessments of any new projects, any new systems, or applications the organisation is looking at acquiring or building or even decommissioning. As part of that process, we actually do a privacy assessment, we do a protective data security preference assessment to work out what the value of those records are, which John picked up before. So we're very clear on the protective security markings of the information that's actually going to be stored in those systems and those assets. We've got to a point where we were initially capturing just significant assets. We're now capturing all types of assets, significant and non, and we've actually, that's OVIC approved. So that was a major achievement that one of my staff was working on solidly for 18 months. And the secret now is to actually, or the success of this project is to really keep our eye on the ball. And there's some areas that we need to focus on. We probably need a data management policy. And yes, we're going through an audit at the moment to work out what some of our shortfalls are across Victoria and across Victoria Police to see if we can actually uplift the capability in that space. As part of the Victorian Protective Data Security Standards, there was an audit done, and one of the recommendations was for Victoria Police to undertake a survey of to identify any assets that we weren't aware of. So I worked very closely with the information security area, and I do fall within Security, Information and Privacy Division. So that collaboration came really easily. And what we did is we couldn't really go out to the whole organisation and ask them for every single asset. So what we did is we focused on three. We focused on IT systems that we weren't aware of. So these are ones outside of the core systems that we typically use outside of the SOE. We also wanted to know what access databases that business areas were using that perhaps we didn't know about. And because we are an organisation that relies heavily on paper and manual processes, we wanted to get a feel of the types of spreadsheets that each area were using that were used widely across their business unit. In particular, they were used for some sort of reporting or action. So as a result of that survey, we received responses from 99% of the organisation. So that was across 27 commands, departments and regions. That's out at the stations. And we found hundreds. There was 300 plus new assets that were being identified. They are slowly being added to our information asset register, and they will be assessed around BAU, because we don't have the resources at the moment to drop everything to do assessments against them. So that's a work in progress. We developed a draft information management policy. I realised that information management was touch points on various policies across the digital information security division. So I was able to put forward a case really to say, look, we need a new IM policy. We need to bring out all the content that we've got in all the other policies, bring them into one central point, and then we can relate those policies in each of the different policies. We also had to do a review of existing procedures, fact sheets and guides, and we had to go through 30, which were now bundled up to around about half a dozen. So we know that they're relevant, we know that they're current, we know they're up to date with all legislation, and also Royal Commission recommendations as well. A big one that we needed to do was to really replace and update our retention and disposal handbook. That was a lot of pages. It was like 50, 60 odd pages. We've now streamlined that so that it's actually you can access all the information on what the best practices are as part of a 4-step easy to use online guide. That guide just hones in on what the key practices are, and it's supported by some videos as well in terms of how do I create a record in RecFind, how do I create a force file in RecFind, how do I prepare records to be transferred to our Victoria Police Archive Centre, and so on. So it's a more contemporary and easy to use sort of suite, I suppose, training and education suite. That suite is sitting on a draft IM hub on SharePoint, which we're hoping to launch in 23. We just have to, we're currently socialising the draft IM policy. So once that socialisation has been finalised and everyone's happy with that latest version, well, then that will be published onto the hub, and then we'll do an actual official launch across the whole organisation. Other work we're focusing on is, I mentioned earlier that we're IM assessments have now been embedded into that agile end-to-end delivery framework for ICT projects. We weren't included before. Privacy was there and the information security was in there. We've now got a presence in there, and we can actually start to put forward some recommendations across the whole organisation when they're looking at implementing or building a new system that they need to address the IM mandatory standards. So we actually articulate what those standards are, and we put those recommendations forward to the areas. I was able to close off 5 internal audit recommendations since that audit was done in 2018. So it was even prior to my arrival at Victoria Police. So that was required a lot of work by my team. It was a great effort, and then eventually we were able to put forward a closing report to our audit committee, and we were successful in doing so because we had such a strong IM strategy that's underlined by an IM maturity roadmap. That's really what got us across the line. We completed our inaugural RCAT self-assessment in 2021 when Prov actually published that particular self-assessment. And we also do which is obviously voluntary, we also do the mandatory IMAP self-assessment as well. So that one's obviously 2 years, and the RCAT one's every 3 years. Yes, even though we're not required to do the RCAT, any way or means for which I can actually identify what our current maturity is, I will take it on board, and it gives me more leverage to really promote to the organisation why we're doing what we're doing, and that we have to incorporate that into our roadmap. And that roadmap is very clear that it aligns with our statutory obligations. We're currently going through the process of reviewing our RDA for 1014, which is Records of Police, of Victoria Police. That particular authority was introduced by Prov in 2010, so it was long overdue for a review, but Victoria Police just didn't have the resources to actually do it. So we were able to get the money from the EDRMS project, because this is definitely a dependency that if we're going to set up the governance controls within the new EDRMS system, we need to ensure that our retentions are actually current and up to date legislation. So we've engaged a consultant, highly recommended by Prov, who is taking us through this journey. We have completed over 20 interviews with internal stakeholders. The final interviews will be wrapped up by the end of this week, and then the consultant will be preparing a new RDA for Victoria Police for socialisation in in May, which will be obviously internal first, and then it'll go external through PROV, through PRAC, and then through the external agencies who we have a lot of dealings with. So just putting that, earmarking that, because some of you we may be in touch with in the future. We developed a disposal program and we're currently in the process of implementing it. It's sometimes difficult to keep on top of our disposal program if we don't have all our resources filled, if we've got a number of vacancies, and if we're working on major projects, that is difficult to actually keep on top of, but we know how important it is and we're progressing nevertheless. The training and education framework that I discussed earlier, that feeds into the new IM hub. So we've got to raise our profile. People understand what it is that we do, the organisation, what benefits we can bring, and we need to talk about what's coming in relation to EDRMS, what's in scope and what's not. And our new Chief Digital Officer has developed a strategy to digitally transform Victoria Police. We need to really shift away from our manual processes and paper to really capturing records when digitally. So when they're born digital, they stay digital. They shouldn't be printed off and attached to files. And this is my final slide. So this is just a sample of the reports that I have been presenting to our IMG C meetings, which is a Tier 1 committee within our organisation. It's chaired by the Deputy Secretary of ITIS, Information Technology, Information Systems. And it's represented by our Chief Digital Officer, a CISO, and various other leaders across the organisation. Our external stakeholders for this, I'm pleased to say, is Justine. So PROV is represented on these meetings as well. So they have a awareness of what activities that we're doing to actually improve our IM capability. As you're aware, there's IMAP, they have various ratings. We've indicated where we'd like to be in the future. We're currently sitting at aware and we really want to progress through. And with some of the activities that are listed underneath there, the ones that we've already completed are over to the right under the middle column there, called completed activities, and then basically the outstanding ones are directly underneath the boxes of the themes as part of the IMAP assessment. We've broken them up into high impact and medium impact. So we've completed 11 to date out of the 20, and we've still got to the end of the year to complete the others. And clearly the EDRMS is such a major, is a game changer for us, this organisation. So we need to continue to do that. And I'm happy for you to read the rest of that report at your own leisure. We certainly come a little bit lower compared to other organisations when you look at the benchmarking, and we may have increased a little bit as part of the recent assessment that we did last year. But long as we're moving upwards and not downwards, that's a positive thing. And once we really do hone in on all the activities there, we'll certainly be in a better position. That's the end of my presentation. So has anyone got any questions?
There are a couple of questions I can see in the Q&A. So
I'll just stop sharing.
I think a number of people, I'm not sure, Sandra, whether you're sharing those slides with us to give out to people.
I've actually provided them already to, is it Mariana? Yep. Or Marianne,
yes.
sorry.
So, so a number of people were saying they couldn't see some of the details, so those slides will be coming out.
Yeah.
So that's fine. And then, so we've got another question. Who are the results of the RCAT and the IMAP assessment reported to?
That's the IMGC, Information Management Governance Committee, and that may change given that we've actually the CDO has now changed the IMGC to a digital transformation committee. So I might be reporting them to the new, when it's established, the Data and Information Management Steering Co. And then any trends, we're still working out the terms of reference, but I believe any trends that are happening across government, anything that impacts on Victoria Police in the IM space and data management. I know there's some internal audit happening at the moment, and obviously where my status with the maturity roadmap will still continue to go up to the DTC, but maybe not on a regular basis.
Thanks, Sandra. And then there's a question, any plans for digitisation of significant VicPol records?
Yes, once we have the EDRMS in place, we're going to be doing some prioritising. So we're going to work out in our archive centre, is there any significant records where we see value in actually back scanning and putting those records into the system? So we have to establish first, if any of those records are due to be destroyed at any point in time in the future, if there's any value. I mean, are they high retrieval? Are they low retrieval? We really need to have a criteria and some assessments to actually work that out. So initially, it will probably be a line in the sand that anything that's in the archives, if anyone retrieves the hard copy records, they will be scanned on demand, put into the EDRMS, then they'll be distributed. And at the same time, my team will probably scan that whole box, so we don't actually have to look at it again. It'll be in the EDRMS, and then we'll actually need a digitisation plan to support the destruction of the hard copy original.
Thank you. And then someone's asked, what are the top 3 challenges you currently face?
Top 3. I think it's can be frustrating and difficult to work in an organisation who it's steeped in history, which is fantastic, and they're very proud of their heritage and what they do. But they haven't taken that leap of faith to actually invest into increasing their own maturity. So for many years, it's been, we'll be okay. We've dealt with hard copy records up to now. We'll be okay. We'll just soldier on. But the good thing is they've realised that that is not sustainable in this current environment, and certainly COVID brought out all the warts and all. And I think that was the challenge, but I can say that we're moving forward in this because we are now going to be implementing an EDRMS, but the challenges will be the uptake of that. And really, change management and culture change is going to be significant, more than the solution itself. And that's why we're doing a staged approach rollout. We are not doing big bang to make sure we do this right, and we have all the training and education. And I've got a whole project team to support me, which is about 10 people strong. And so we need to get that right. So that's probably, I think that's our major change, challenge. And I'm just putting everything that's associated with digitisation moving forward is going to be a major challenge.
Great. And then someone's asked, what EDRMS are you considering?
Oh, I can't discuss it. We've gone out to the market. So we will wait to see what the responses are.
And then someone said, was there an analysis done on whether SharePoint at the front end and maybe an EDRMS at the back end would gain increased usability by staff?
I can share with you that what's in scope is to digitise our force files, which is they're files that are used across the whole organisation to capture major decisions. So that's in scope, and the other things in scope is the integration of the EDRMS with M365 Suite, which includes SharePoint and Teams, and we will be aligning that with the standards, prop standards.
And then someone else has said, as a related question, was dev or uplift of SharePoint considered an option in lieu of an EDRMS?
We looked at various options, and that seemed like the best option for us moving forward. It needs to be a contemporary EDRMS.
Yes. Okay, I think that's it. Someone's asked, will all the content be migrated to EDRMS when it becomes available?
You're referring to the metadata that's stored in RecFind, because it's only metadata. So we're not sure yet. It depends on what the solution is, whether they're able to extract metadata from our current RecFind system to bring it across. Worst case scenario is we might, if it doesn't manage paper records well, we might have to have a hybrid. We might keep the existing RecFind and keep the
They've
new
clarified
EDRMS.
it's digital born records. They're saying, would all digital born records be migrated? So I guess records in other business systems.
Integration, that's it's not in scope initially, but it certainly will be as part of the future stages once the EDRMS is in place. Because there is potential there to integrate, but we don't know which systems we want to integrate yet to get the best value. So full assessments will have to be done.
And then I think a final question, because I'm conscious of time.
Didn't realise there was many questions.
Are controlled documents applied to capture your high value records?
Sorry, will there be?
Are controlled documents applied to capture your high value records?
Okay, well, at the moment, we basically just use RecFind. We've got the protective security markings, and they just basically say where our files are, whether they're with individuals, whether they're actually at our archive centre, in a box, on what shelf and what compactors. But moving forward, we're going to have controls in place across all the prop standards. They'll be built into the system prior to rollout. We need to get that governance layer across the EDRMS and 365 before we'll actually roll out the solution. Hope that answers that question.
Thanks very much, Sandra. That was great. Yes, I think we're all interested in better outcomes for VicPol and their documents and records. I'm sure the courts would be happy about that as well.
Absolutely. I'm so excited to get to this stage after 4 years, and I think my predecessors will be relieved as well, and obviously yourself. So very exciting times, and yes, happy to keep you up to date. There we go.
Thanks very much, Sandra. All right, so we'll move on to our next speakers. So we're now going to hear from Jane McKenna and Noella Bayali. I hope I said that correctly. You can correct me if I'm incorrect. And they are from Development Victoria. Jane and Nola will be speaking to us about building the records brand in their agency, and specifically they will address collaboration, training and upskilling to support a consistent approach to records management. So welcome to you both.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chastity.
I'm going to share my screen and I'm going to talk for some of the time and then hand over to Jane. So, share. And then look at our content management system. Sorry, not doing very well here. Here. Hope this is the right one. Can everybody see the screen?
Yep, that's good.
Yes.
Yep. Looks like it's a little bit not quite seeing the whole. No, I think I do have to change that. I'm so sorry. It's not quite showing properly. No. Okay, ready.
Beautiful.
Apologies for my coughing as well. Thank you for having us speak today. This talk's going to describe some of our efforts at DV to Development Victoria to embed a records culture within our organisation. So initially, we'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners of all of the lands upon which we're meeting today. I'm speaking from Brunswick and Jane is in Doreen, and we wish to acknowledge the Wurundjeri people as the traditional owners of this land from which we are speaking. We would also like to pay our respects to their elders, past, present and emerging, and to Aboriginal elders of other communities who may be here today. So Development Victoria was established on the 1st of April 2017 due to a merger between Places Victoria and Major Projects Victoria. Our records document the building of new communities across Victoria, the construction and ongoing reimagining of significant public precincts and buildings, the state's commitment to sustainable and affordable housing, and our collaboration with a wide range of commercial organisations to deliver those objectives for Victoria. We're, I guess, a medium-sized government agency of 350 plus people. We're currently experiencing quite a growth spurt with the addition of the Commonwealth Games teams, as DV will be delivering villages and venues. So that's become part of our portfolio. A very large proportion of our records are permanently valuable because they document the construction of significant public buildings and urban redevelopments. We use Content Manager 9.4 as our EDRMS at the moment, and we also use Teams for our day-to-day collaboration for project teams. So, what are we trying to achieve? Well, we seek to embed a records culture within our organisation at every level within the agency, from senior management, in every group, at every team, and for every employee. So we try to approach things at various levels to get our messages across. We seek to ensure that all employees feel confident that they know what is expected of them and how to achieve this, and that help is always available when they need it. This is partly about specific skills training and awareness, but also about building the value proposition for every person, making it worth their while to do the right thing. We all know that sometimes the easy thing is easy but not ideal. All of our work is based on the PROV policy, standards, guidelines and procedures, but we need to massage these into a plain language package that can be easily absorbed by our employees. We try to keep a fairly softly approach, taking our employees along at a pace that they can accommodate. Keeping it simple at first, but providing more advanced features and tools for specific needs. And as people have demonstrated that they, understand the basics and want to do more. For example, we're currently testing a new add-on application to simplify and improve our capture, retrieval and use of our vast library of imagery. This is not only going to assist our users to capture those images more effectively, but it will provide an improved capacity for intellectual rights management and consents for public use. So it's going to help certain parts of our organisation do their work much more effectively. Always, we emphasise the significance of the records that we create at DV, their long-term value, and how good management of these records can also improve our day-to-day productivity and efficiency. Technology does have a place in this value proposition, but it's not the primary driver. So we want to look at, similar to what Don was saying. There's sort of a three-pronged effect. There's technology, there's policies and standards, and there's people. So we want to bring those together in as effective way as we can. Oh, I forgot that. What are our challenges? Many and varied, to be honest. Many of our employees arrive from the commercial sector, from the building and construction industries. And in many instances, they come with very little formal records management awareness and or skills. So we are coming from a low base in a lot of cases when people first start with us. Our staff are insanely busy, and it can be difficult to get them to allocate time for records management training and activities when other priorities appear a lot more pressing. I know that's common for all sorts of organisations. Faced with small hurdles, some folk will drop it on the C drive for now. Is it ever going to make it into the formal systems? Questionable. We have a fairly significant legacy from our predecessor agencies. Much of this has been arranged or migrated in ways that do cause issues for us today. When they've smushed a couple of government departments together, the systems haven't always been nicely migrated in. And so we have to manage that both in our own management of the records, but also in how we teach people, our end users, to use the material, to look for things, and deal with these legacy issues. We also struggle with varied team-specific practices. We educate new employees with best practice only to find that their teammates encourage them to take the short-term options. Sometimes this too is about overcoming those legacy issues, but a lot of the time it's what we've always done versus how we want to do better. Technology is constantly evolving, and we need to ensure that we accommodate this into our dialogue. If not, we do risk appearing a bit obsolete. So, when somebody comes to us and says, "Oh, but I worked at somewhere else and they did it in this way," we need to consider those issues as well, to keep up with that broader technological environment. So we have a records training tools and awareness strategy. We review this annually in order to focus upon emerging issues and learn from these past experiences. We send a welcome email to all new employees upon setup within the systems, and this includes key records management messages, links to our records awareness video, and other training materials. Every new employee receives, whether they want it or not, receives an initial one-on-one EDRMS training session. This is introducing them to the system and how Content Manager works within DV, because we all know that these systems are always slightly customised for each work environment. We believe this is a pivotal component of what we like to call our charm offensive. This is about getting to know all of our users, engaging their skill levels, and assuring them of their ongoing support, or our ongoing support of them. The initial session is followed up about 1 month later with an invitation to attend more advanced Content Manager training. And this can also include training in the use of Capiche Explorer, which we have as an alternative interface, I guess, into Content Manager for those people who really love to use a sort of Windows Explorer front end. We give people that option, but we don't train them in that initially. We want them to get used to the basic Content Manager functionality and requirements first. We are currently developing a range of subject-based educational sessions, and these are targeted more at group assistants and individual project teams, trying to help people with their specific problems for their specific team. And this could include things like FOI and record keeping, improved naming conventions, and things of that nature. How to better manage teams and our EDRMS folder structures to keep them aligned, because we do allow people to use teams for day-to-day collaborative work. And then we want to make sure that they know that we then want to bring the important things of that into the RMS for long-term capture. These are often initiated from queries that we receive from the group assistants or from other users, or discussions that we have with the project team leaders. And they might be highlighting an area where we want to provide clearer and more standard information across the agency. We've developed a comprehensive set of both written and video how-to guides, and we build upon these as required. In fact, we're working up some new ones for our new media management tools as we speak. We've developed a series of quick tips as issues arise, and we put these on our internal information screens and make them available through agency-wide emails and on our intranet pages and things like that, so that we're trying to be immediate in how we're addressing issues that perhaps are a little bit in people's high in people's minds at any given time. We provide ongoing mentoring to all staff with our service desk. Resolving individual issues is a great opportunity to continue to educate employees about that broader impact of their record-keeping behaviour, and training people on better ways to capture and use their records, either in Teams or via our EDRMS. And throughout all of this, we try to maintain that charm initiative by really emphasising that we are there to help and building those personal relationships to make sure that we're very approachable in how we go about things. So I'm going to now hand over to Jane, who is going to bring this presentation home. Over to you, Jane.
Lovely. Thanks, Noella. Thanks so much. Noella has set the scene for our organisation and the kinds of things we do to really build that records culture. But then we need to measure the success of all the things we do. And I think for us, one of the challenges as records and information specialists is it doesn't matter how passionate we are and how great our knowledge is and how many sessions we offer, our success is measured by outcomes of other people's behaviour. So how do we actually measure whether anything we do has been uptaken and used by our agency, DV, or any agency? And so here's some key things that you could look for in your agency, and we certainly do here at DV, to see if our records maturity in the organisation is growing. So we look at improved habits. Are people using the system more? Do we need to request more licenses because people are actually using more tools? Are we getting more questions? Are we getting more advanced questions? And that's a really key thing for us, is to see that maturity go from just being able to do the basics to actually being able to do some of those more intermediate things themselves. And that's really important to us as a small organisation. We offer so many training modules and ways to learn, but are people actually using those? So we're looking for that cultural change, and this is really organisational wide. Are records included in discussions? Are we included early in discussions? Are we even thought about in the organisation's strategic outcomes? So this is really important to see as an organisation rather than as an individual. Are we seeing those shifts in records awareness? And really, we talk more about information management than records, because that means something a little bit more to our group. Well, training and awareness, I don't think Noella and I could possibly offer more training. Last year, for an organisation that was currently under 300 people, we offered over 100 different kinds of sessions. So that was new starter sessions, group sessions, video sessions, talks to the organisation, to team meetings. We do a lot of training and we keep that dialogue open to people. So we want to see this building of skills. We also really like and respond quickly to any requests for modules. So if we do get a question, we respond quickly to put up a new help card or to contact that group or to share with the organisation the response or the how-to for that. And also invitations to attend team meetings. In our organisation, the records team actually get quite a high response to attend team meetings. So once again, that's a really good sign that culturally our organisation is really trying to embrace some part of record keeping and doing it right. So the measures are simple. We can use our EDRMS to see if there's more content going in. And we can also measure by just inquiries and help tickets. So this is showing how people are engaged with the records messages that we're providing. So we have now given you an idea of what we do. And here I want to challenge you with also the same message that both John and I think Sandra was saying. We all need to think a little differently. We're all resource poor. We have people power. We often don't have a lot of money to do things. So we have to rely on being a little bit more creative. So here is our continual process model. We think that you could use this in your organisation, big or small, just to give you a reminder of the things that perhaps will go to building that records culture. So at the top, we really want to think about planning. What are we trying to achieve? What are our time frames? How are we going to deliver? What kind of culture have we got? And what kind of culture do we want to develop? So that takes us in to know our audience and adjust delivery to suit the audience. So here we're really mindful of not doing too much records jargon, keeping it really simple, and often using examples of their work to describe how records would actually apply. We build positive relationships and we build champions. So in each group, we really build people who have an interest in records by helping them learn new skills and really helping them. We also build positive relationships. So Noella and I look after 350 staff at Development Victoria, but we take time and effort to listen to what they're saying, share in those training exercises where we answer and respond, we engage with them. It might be that we build more of a personal relationship with them to help them learn record keeping. So really keeping that dialogue open for them. We use our records team, the all two of us, as educators, change managers, and most importantly, support and safety net. So we want people to feel that if they have a try at doing what we call record keeping processes, that they will be supported by us. We use multiple approaches to address different learning styles, and this includes just our general learning sheets. We have videos, we have help guides, we might have a Teams chat, we might have a quick phone call. Any way that we can address those learning styles, we're prepared to adapt and respond to that. But we are mindful of key messages. So while it sounds like we have a lot going on in the record space at Development Victoria, and we certainly do, we are mindful of putting out very specific targeted messages if we are going to target a group or the organisation. So not overloading them with too many exceptions to the rules, keeping those key messages direct and targeted and consistent. We also evolve. So we're learning as much as our organisation is learning. We learn how they like to receive information. We learn what kind of subjects they're interested in. So new technologies, all of those things, we keep evolving. We're not still offering the same project and training modules that we offered last year. We offer different ones this year that build on their experiences in that records management space. And very importantly, we listen to the feedback. If people are prepared to share feedback with you, that often takes a lot of courage and consideration on their behalf. So we listen very openly to real feedback, and that's a key part of this whole process. Once we've listened, we then move that into that rinse and repeat or planning stages. So using that knowledge to improve what we do and then plan using that feedback to continue to build our records maturity in the organisation. So that's not only what we are at Development Victoria, but that is how we run our records program to keep building records maturity in our organisation. So I'd like to thank you all for listening with us today. And of course, Noella and I are very open to any questions that you may have.
Thank you, both of you. Let's see if there's any questions waiting. So I think someone's asking whether you can share your presentation, whether you're willing to do that.
Absolutely.
We already have. We've given it to Marianne as well. So
fantastic. Sorry, I'm just scrolling backwards through the questions. Okay, so I think I've got them all. How are you managing and delivering the video how-to guides? Do you have a system that manages them, or are you just using YouTube intranet?
So we use the intranet to post them up, and we use a screen prezzo to actually make them.
Thank you. And then there's a question, does the imagery management tool integrate with Content Manager? And if so, how does that integration work?
Go on, Noella. This is Noella's exciting baby this week.
Not my baby. So the product is MediaZelle. Are we allowed to talk about product? The product is MediaZelle. It's an FYB product, and it is basically it's an add-on. Uses Content Manager in the back end, obviously, but it's a way to present imagery using a thumbnail approach and things like that. And it allows users to add personal tags and personal user labels, produce reports that are useful when you're preparing, for example, a publicity brochure and things like that. So and allows them also to have better management of some of the media quality details, as well as the intellectual property rights and things like that. So and consents for publication and that sort of thing. And so people in our comms team and in our sales teams are very excited to get this product because it's going to help them have a better overview of imagery that's available for a particular purpose that they can then use in their work. Yes, look, it's an internet-based product, sorry, but it integrates with Content Manager. Does that answer your question?
I think it does. Can employees use MS Teams to store documents? And if so, what are the steps that you take to ensure records management governance and compliance, such as archival and disposal?
Great. Do you want me to try this one?
Yeah, I'll say something cross.
We do a lot of work around this. So yes, they are absolutely allowed to use Teams, but we place some messaging around it, and that is that it's work in progress and collaboration. And then the organisation expects that final records are all moved into Content Manager. So that is a consistent message. I have to say that's one that doesn't change, so there's not too much flexibility there. And it's the responsibility of the project directors to make sure that their teams are actually doing that. So Teams is great and easy and quick, but we want those final records in Content Manager, and further down the field we will be looking at integrations that do that for them as well.
And sorry,
you go.
just add to that and just sort of say that, look, you know, some people are better than other people at heeding that message and bringing those documents directly in. But we also do have, you know, some teams and a cohort of users who actually recognise that their work will be more effectively done. They'll be more productive if they actually work directly into Content Manager as well. So it's up to them. We support them regardless of the decision that they take. And if they're in teams, we try to encourage them to remember to capture those significant records. If they're working directly into Content Manager, of course, we help them with perhaps more advanced skills and things like that. And you know, sometimes things go back the other way too. They're in Content Manager, but we can have a link in Teams as well. So people can be pretty fluid in how they do things depending on the particular project that they're working on, because our projects are very varied, and the way that they're going to achieve their objectives is not always the same. Next.
And then I think this is more of a comment, but how many staff do you have at DV? Individual training is a great goal, but hard to achieve in a large organisation.
Yeah. Yes, it absolutely is. So we're able to do it because it is a small scale, and I'm very aware of that. I've also worked in very large organisations that have thousands and tens of thousands of staff, and I know that in those environments, classroom training or online learning units are much more practical. We simply took that decision really because of the size and scale of the organisation we're in. And also we find that it's a good way to get people specifically up and running in their set of records. So we can kind of tailor make that quite quickly and get them feeling that a little bit more confident. In larger organisations or with small organisations and part-time records teams and examples like that, no, you'd need to do some more creative thinking, and perhaps an e-learning that we use Prov's e-learning module as well for people, use other resources and look at how you could perhaps build skills in classroom styles occasionally or something like that. So we do understand we're really lucky that we can do this, but it's not a practical option with, if DV increased to 1,000 staff, I can pretty well guarantee they won't be getting individual training sessions. So absolutely acknowledge that.
It certainly is a balancing act between the number of people in your records team and the number of people you have to look after as well. So if the number of people in our records team went up appropriately, you know, we might make different decisions as well.
And that is a question, how many people in the RMIM team?
You're looking at both of them. Yep.
Yes.
100% attendance from us, Justine, today.
But there are also we sit within the ICT team or directory, and of course we have wonderful support from our technology buddies. So we have people who are, you know, assisting us with keeping our systems live and healthy. We have a service desk which helps log initial calls and, you know, perhaps does a little first level triage and things like that. And that of course is all actually part of the thing that we're presenting as a directory. We're saying ICT are here to help and enable you know, designers and planners and urban town planning people and whatnot. You know, we're helping you do better at your work.
There are a number of other questions, but we are actually running out of time. So I think you guys have access to the Q&A. So if you want to go ahead and answer them, but there are a number of ones about training and administration of your EDRMS, etc. So have a look at those.
Thanks very much.
Okay, so we're going to move to our final speaker today, and that is Susanna Tyndall from Monash University, and she's going to talk us through something that I don't think most of us have been using as instructional tools, podcasts. So welcome to Susanna.
Hi everyone, just making sure you can hear me.
Yes.
We're not Teams people, so Teams is very much out of my depth. And I do apologise in advance. We've got an all-staff meeting today, so we're full house. So if it's a bit noisy in the background, that's what's going on. So I will share my screen. Okay. Fantastic. So just also hoping that that one can definitely be seen, because I'm used to having the bar around the page. I don't know if there's a thumbs up or something. Otherwise, they're not very interesting slides, so I'll proceed with that one. So I just wanted to say, firstly, I want to acknowledge the traditional owners of the lands we are gathered on in Melbourne today and beyond, and pay my respects to their elders past, present and emerging. So this presentation will cover a couple of different areas, including background to Monash and myself, what our episodes are and the tools and systems we use to create them, the response to the podcasts we have released, and finally our plans for the future. So I'm Susanna Tyndall, and I'm about to tick over 6 years in the profession, which has absolutely flown by. I've been quite involved in the wider profession in my short time, and I'm currently working with ASA, RIMPA and the International Council on Archives. I utilised lockdowns 5 and 6 in Melbourne to complete my Master of Information Studies at CSU, which was much better time spent than what I would normally be doing, which would be sitting in traffic on the Eastern Freeway. I've been with the Monash University Records Management team throughout my time in the profession and love the variety of work that comes along with higher education. Despite being a millennial, I recognise some of my IT skills were lacking, so I've taken up a secondment with our service desk team, building my IT knowledge and skills through frontline support, and I've found this to be an invaluable experience. So I'll just give you a bit of a background to Monash. So we are Australia's largest university. We currently have around 85,000 enrolled students and approximately 25,000 staff across 3 continents. Our official staff count is always listed as an FTE equivalent. We base our high figure off how many people are given a swipe card and how many people can feasibly call us here at the service desk for some support. So in Melbourne, we are based here at Clayton, Caulfield Peninsula campus at Frankston and at Parkville, but we also have campuses in Malaysia, Indonesia, India, China and Italy. So this presents some fun intricacies for our team, as we have to consider any legal requirements and local requirements for information management, such as GDPR, especially for our Prado campus there. At Monash, our records and archives teams are together but have slightly separate functions. So we sit under the IT division, which is eSolutions. We currently have around 600 staff. Our records and archives team each have 4 full-time staff, so we're quite small in the grand scheme of Monash. Our records team is a governance unit, providing advice across all areas of the university, both here in Australia and across our international campuses. So there's no denying it, podcasts are absolutely everywhere. But funnily enough, I don't actually listen to them. I find the only way I can concentrate on them is if I'm sitting still and just listening. So using them in a daily commute or out on a walk, I just find I tune out. So they're not all that good for me. So with this in mind, why did we decide to start our own podcast here at Monash? Simply because we could. As many of you here will know, our profession can often be a bit of a blind spot, but movies and TV shows very often join us together and give us common ground. Records and more broadly information management can feature in ways you don't always associate if you're not thinking about it. So our aim is to bring some of these ideas and theories out and discuss them in a way that will make sense to our everyday IT professional. Once Kath and I, my manager, Catherine Nichols, and I decided to trial doing some podcasts, we had to think of what to review. At first, this could be hard, but once you've got into a rhythm, it was actually easy to start seeing inspiration everywhere. To date, we have published 3 different episodes. So the first one was Who Do You Think You Are with Daniel Radcliffe, which could be found on SBS On Demand. Episode 2 was Expose the Ghost Train Fire from the ABC, which was a multi-episode exploration into the 1979 Ghost Train Fire at Sydney's Luna Park. And episode 3 was Fake or Fortune from iView. This show analyses artwork to see if it's real or a really good fake. We also have about 3 or 4 new episodes that are written but just need to be recorded. We tried a few different things and actually recorded our first podcast about 4 or 5 times before we settled on the final formula. We wanted the episodes to be short and snappy so people could listen to them over lunch or while having a cup of coffee. As both myself and my manager, Catherine Nichols, can get quite chatty, we finally decided to write a full script. This did 2 things. It kept us on track and to the time limit, and also ensured that we had a bit of a narrative to what we were saying and didn't end up on massive tangents and struggling to find a way back. When it came to recording, we used our normal standard issue headsets or the laptop microphone for the sound, then Zoom to record like you would any other meeting. This gave us both image and sound, but ultimately we decided not to use our image as part of the final published piece. This has the added benefit that when we're following along with the script, it doesn't look like we're super disinterested. When you save and finalize a Zoom meeting, this actually comes out with a few different files, including a separate audio file with just the dialogue. This saves having to isolate the sound file, and this is what we finally edited and turned into the final podcast. I have a bit of an advantage for the editing as I have an Adobe license at work, which gave me access to the full suite of Adobe products. So full disclosure, I had never used any of these products in the start. I found a lot of Googling and trial and error helped me in getting used to these programs. They are visually quite intense, as you can kind of see on that soundbite there, but once you've had a bit of a play, they get a little bit easier to use. As we were following a script, there wasn't too much editing to do. Most of what I had to remove was long pauses or ums and ahs and the occasional coughing fit. I have the added difficulty of a new build at the house next door, and since then another house across the road, which is very fun. So there's occasionally some background construction noise, but I feel this adds to the authenticity of our amateur podcast. We also did have a fun recording when a candle caught fire in the background and the panic that followed. After the editing is complete, it's time for us to publish. As I said earlier, we are publishing audio only, so not the vision of us speaking. As we have a fantastic animation program we use at work called Beyond, which is used for other things, including our general records training, it was easiest to continue with this and keep that similar branding. Unfortunately, this is a licensed program and it's a little bit on the expensive side. There'd definitely be other free programs that could be used to get the similar effect. We just really, really like the Beyond one, so we keep using it. I did some fun animations and created a character for myself and my manager, Kath. For each episode, I have included a title card, which we found on the previous slide, and the title or image of the show that was relevant. For example, in the Fake or Fortune episode, we kept the painting up for the full episode. We've had extremely positive responses to our podcast series. After our first episode was released, we actually had an influx of people with requests for us to review different shows and also gave us feedback on shows they were now seeing with a different lens. Initially, we were just posting these internally via our social media platform at Monash Workplace, but have since decided to publish externally to our records management website so they can be shared more widely, including with all of you. We manage the videos through YouTube. We've also been able to pivot the original use and gamify the content for training within a large student services area. This area is responsible for developing new systems for managing student information, like centralizing forms and processes, so they are an important team for us to collaborate with. The training allows users to earn badges for different areas of understanding, similar to like a scout badge with everything like that. We gave each podcast a short quiz, and now people get different records management badges when they've completed a section. This engagement came purely from seeing our podcasts, and it is a massive achievement. You'll notice there haven't been any podcasts in a while and new episodes. As I mentioned, I've been on secondment with the service desk team. This was originally supposed to be a couple of weeks, but it just kept getting extended and is now actually hit 5 months. This role is a lot of fun and a great way to meet new people from across the organisation we wouldn't ordinarily interact with at Records. And yes, I have used the opportunity to share the podcast with staff and students and keep spruiking the Records team with the people that call about related things. I'm now back with the team 2 days a week and excited to get back into this and bring my new skills that I've learned from Service Desk back to our team. As I said earlier, we have a few more podcasts in the mix and are excitingly branching out with some guest speakers. So for example, we're going to do an episode on disaster recovery using the story from the classic Australian film, The Dish. The fun part about all of this has been watching something and thinking, wow, I need to write an episode about this. We've tried to do most of our episodes on free open access platforms like iView or SBS On Demand, but there are a few that are going to be on paid streaming services. So, too quick. My final advice, don't be afraid to give something like this a try. There are so many free programs out there you can use, including those that come standard with just your computer. Even if you never publish them, I found this a great exercise in explaining concepts in ways that others can understand. And finally, all of our podcasts are available here on our website, so hopefully there's QR code will take you directly there. Hopefully there'll be a couple more exciting ones released in the next couple of weeks. But that's my presentation for today. If there are any questions, Justine.
Thank you so much, Susanna. That's really fascinating. I love all the comments you got too. That was great. And I can see a lot of claps and some hearts coming up as well. So that's great. Yeah. And they've asked us to put the a link to the podcast in the chat as well. So we'll see what we can do about that. We'll certainly send it out.
I'll leave that up for a couple more seconds just in case people are a bit slow getting to it.
Yeah. We should all be good with QR codes now. Yeah, so I'm not seeing any questions, but a lot of like people saying that's great. So
yes, excited for lunchtime.
Yeah, probably. There's a few people with their hands up, but I'm not sure whether that means they can't type in the Q&A or what. But yeah, so people are saying they can't wait to see the link. Natasha's linked to your website, so that's great. And people are saying awesome presentation, great idea. So I think there's a lot of people, no questions, but a lot of people saying what a fantastic idea. Oh, there is one question. What has the response been within the uni? Has it made people more interested in records?
Oh, absolutely, yes. And there's a couple of other areas that we've kind of piggybacked on other projects to get a little bit more exposure, because as I said, there are 8 of us in the records and archives team across 25,000 staff, so we're very, very small. So just building that more advocacy and exposure and getting that out there. And of course, we tried to keep I think the longest podcast is about half an hour, but I think the first 2 are 10 and 15 minutes, so really short. Smash it out and still have a fair bit of your lunchtime left to keep watching, but just to kind of get some of those ideas out there so they go, oh yeah, I actually hadn't thought about that. I've seen that movie heaps, and oh, am I doing that in my workplace? Is there something I could be doing a little bit differently? And then coming back and talking to us and helping them on their way.
That's great. Well, there are no other questions and we are at time. So I just want to thank you, Susanna, and thank you to all of the speakers. Yes, there's lots of people saying they love it. They love the idea. So in the question area. So that's well done, you guys. And I'm sure you had a ball doing it as well.
The candle incident when it caught on fire. I should release the footage because it's hilarious. Thank you so much, Justine.
Yeah, okay. So thanks very much, Susanna, and thank you to all of our speakers today, and thank you to all of you for attending as well. And I look forward to seeing you again at a future Records Management Network event. Hopefully, we'll be able to hold one with everybody who being able to come physically as well, and possibly also hybrid, so that people who have to travel, who are a distance from Melbourne, can also come. So thank you, everyone. And I look forward to seeing you again in the future. Thank you.